Hi, my lovely.
Hello, my lovelies. I'm Harry Bucknell. Thank you for downloading Human Not Heroic, the podcast from Blesma, a limbless veteran.
Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman.
In this edition of Human Not Heroic, telling the reality, the everyday, and the how of life for our limbless and sight-effective veterans, we celebrate the Wonder Woman in life, our mums, because Sunday, the 15th of March, is Mother's Day. To mark the occasion, I was transported north to Donny Doncaster by magical digital Zoom to meet with former Army medic, Blesma trustee, supermum of 3 and above-the-knee amputee, Lisa Johnston. As is traditional, we started at the beginning.
We're going to start at the beginning. How is it in sunny Donny?
Woo!
Lisa, it's lovely to see you. We're talking about Mother's Day. We're celebrating Mother's Day. And it is appropriate that as you are a trustee of Blesma and also mother of 3, talk to you about being a limbless mother. And I'd like to go back to that day when your leg injury happened in Aldershot on the assault course. Can you just talk us through what actually happened to you?
So I did an assault course in Aldershot, and I had to jump over a 6-foot wall. And as I jumped over, when I landed, I felt a sharp pain in my ankle. I was like, ooh, something's not quite right. So I did the bog standard thing. I told the PTI, who told you the bog standard thing of drink more water, come and see me at the end. So that's what we did. Saw him at the end when you have a lineup. Anybody sustained any injuries, now step forward. I stepped forward. I told him about it, and he sent me to the med centre.
Let's put this in context. You served 17 years in the Royal Army Medical Corps, so you were yourself a medic.
Yes.
You knew something wasn't right at the beginning, didn't you?
Yeah. So after the initial, normally after 7 days, an injury kind of like settles down, but it wasn't settling. It felt the same, and if anything, it was kind of getting worse. So when I went back to the med centre, I said, "Look, something's not quite right." They sent you for tests. I did X-rays, and everything came back clear and normal.
Always does.
And always does. And they said there's nothing wrong. And over weeks that kept happening, and for every time they said there's nothing physically wrong with you, I started to think, shit, it's all in here. If there's nothing physically wrong with me, then what is going on?
What was going on?
Unbeknown to me at the time, I actually had developed CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome. That's a neurological pain condition that amplifies pain. So when you stub your toe on the edge of your bed in the morning, that pain, that dies down. But for me, when I did the assault course, that pain, that never went away and slowly got stronger and stronger. My nerves were sending my brain messages to say that it's, although it's a little injury, it's over exaggerating the pain that I was experiencing. And CRPS can be cured if you catch it early enough. If in 0 to 3 months, it can be cured, no problems with desensitizing and therapies and all that kind of stuff. 3 to 6 months, it's 50-50. 6 months plus, that's it. It's more of managing it because your brain's rewired itself, and it's just you have to manage a condition for the rest of your life. Now, I didn't get my diagnosis until about 7.5, 8 months later. So by the time I had found out what was wrong, I Googled it like you normally do. And it was saying stuff like swelling, tick, pain, tick, discoloration, tick. It was like reading a little check sheet of what I had. And then I went down to the treatment, and that's when I found out that those time frames, treatment for me by then wasn't on the agenda. It couldn't happen.
So you're from a military family, you're married to born officer in the Royal Logistic Corps, there it is, driving great big lorries, all the stuff, keeping the army going.
Mhm.
You knew you had to lose a leg. You're a mother of 3, burly boys, okay, all teenagers, right?
All teenagers now, yeah. Well, at the time, because I was in so much pain, I just, to be fair, I wanted the leg gone, because in my head, my leg was the problem, and the problem was causing me so much pain it messes with my mind. So in my eyes, if I got rid of the problem, then the solution would be that itself. So for me, quite early on, it had to go. It
You're
had
on,
to go, because I couldn't live on like the way I was living.
I mean, you medics are renowned for your stoicism, your bravery and your courage, and there you are, and you are faced with the fact that you've got to take your leg off. I mean, how did that affect you?
It was when you're in that much pain and you're on meds to kind of help the pain, but they don't really help the pain. They just fog your memory and fog your brain. Um, I got to such low. How do I describe it? I was in so much pain that I wasn't functioning properly, and there were 3 times where I fantasized and came close to actually taking the leg off myself, because I was no use to man or beast. I couldn't look after myself, let alone look after my boys. And because I was petrified of them hurting me, I kind of made like an invisible circle around me that they couldn't enter. And if they did get too close, I'd be like, "Oh, no, 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 no!" And I couldn't react. I couldn't control my reaction of how I was with my kids. So they started calling me Monster Mummy, and they kind of stayed away from me. So I was just a person that sat in the front room that the kids ignored. And that was pretty miserable in itself.
For you, bringing up 3 boys, how did it feel that you suddenly had to isolate yourself? How did they react?
Well, like I said, they saw me as just a person who sat in the front room. They didn't really talk to me because I couldn't engage with them, being so drugged up and having such a foggy mind. There were 2, 3, and 7. So they were very young. Yeah.
They're very young, and they really need their mum, and
They did, yeah.
And how did that feel for you, and that feel for them?
Well, to this day, I carry so much guilt with me, because if you're a mum, your job is to teach your children, nurture your children, help your children grow. And at that precise time, I couldn't do any of those things. I couldn't even physically play with them because I was in that much pain. So to this day, the amount of guilt that I carry is still there. So trying to be a mum when you're in that position yourself, it wasn't possible. That was a burden.
Let's then fast forward to your husband. How did he? I mean, for him, it must have been very difficult. Although he's a serviceman, and then we're all servicemen, we all get on with it, we all struggle through. How did he cope?
In the early days when we were both in, that his unit was pretty good, and he'd go he'd travel from home to his unit, back again, and they were pretty lenient with that. But when we moved up north, I was obviously on the verge of being medically discharged, and he'd done his time, so we all moved up north, and he had another job. He was doing communications, but because of how poorly I was, he had to take about a year out of work to look after me, because I couldn't physically look after myself, and I couldn't physically be a mum to the boys. So he was the rock. He was my glue. He was the my best friend who got us through that whole traumatic time, so to speak.
Now we're through the time. When you decided that the leg had to come off, how was that?
I was living from hospital appointment to hospital appointment, and in between it was like pretty much limbo. We were in limbo, and at every appointment that I'd gone to, they'd revert back to the drawing board and say, no, we'll try this, this, and this, which we'd already done in the past. So that each time I went to a hospital appointment, it was like, I was getting more downhearted, and I felt as if I wasn't being believed, because for them to say there's nothing wrong with you for so long, that's why I started doubting myself. But when I had an appointment with at Headley, we had an outside neurosurgeon come in, and they had a clinic each month, and I was lucky enough to be put on the clinic list. And when I spoke to the consultant, pretty much the first thing she says, she goes, Lisa, I read your case. I know you've been bumped to this person, but I've read your file. You are a perfect candidate for an amputation. So when she said this, I was like, what? And she goes, I will do your surgery. And I was like, again, because I couldn't retain the information, but two, I couldn't believe the words I was actually hearing, because that validated myself for actually being believed that I wasn't making all this up. And for somebody to turn around and validate that was just a massive weight off my shoulders, and I just cried. Now, I don't know if it was crying because, oh my God, I'm losing my leg. I think it was crying through relief, that there was a light, even a small light at the end of this massive tunnel that just seemed to be on a desolate road to nowhere. But after that appointment, I was like, oh my God, something can be done, and this won't be the rest of my life, because I wouldn't have been able to handle it.
So there you are. You're faced with the prospect of losing your limb, and you take the hard road. After it came off, was that the relief you expected?
I didn't know what to expect, to be fair, because, like I say, for 2.5 years, 3 years, I was in this much pain, and I couldn't envision life before, and I couldn't envision life after. So when I woke up from the anaesthetic that first day, yes, I was in pain, but it was more localized, and I could, like, drip feed my drug, my morphine, whatever, and it was great. But the burning CRPS pain, that had absolutely vanished, and I was on such a natural high that I know it had gone. It was an incredible feeling to wake up from an operation to whip your leg off, to be so happy. It was a bit bizarre, because surely an individual shouldn't be happy about having that type of surgery, but I felt so elated and relief and happy and joy, and oh my God, I can't wait for what's next. All these feelings, once I woke up, were just there, and I knew this was the start of a new beginning.
Meantime, back in the front room, the whole Johnson family is waiting there with fingers crossed and saying, how's mum? What was their reaction?
Because I didn't like the kids coming close to me because of how much pain they possibly could have put me in, I didn't have a lot of contact with them. So when I came home from the hospital, it was a summer's evening. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I said to Jono, I said, look, I need to hug my kids. I need to see them. So they all come running downstairs, and I was sat on the sofa, and my arms were outstretched, and they all came running towards me, and they gave me this massive hug. That it took me back to when they were born. It was like having that hug for the first time all over again, and it was just magical. So all that love, I just tried to give into that first hug, and I said, look, mummy's back, mummy's home now. It still gets me, something you just can't. There's no descriptive words to describe that moment, that instant, that reconnection. So, yeah, that was tough. Sorry about that.
Good for you.
Yeah, have a moment.
So we know how it was after then. So here you are now. And how is it with the leg every day?
It's just it's part of everyday life. If I have, it's very rare that I have a chair day. And if I do have a chair day, it just means I do the same stuff, but it's just in a chair, and it's a little bit harder. But when I first got my leg, the boys thought it was incredible. because I was playing games with him. I'd be involved. I became mum again, and because my youngest Ethan, he's got global developmental delay. He's really, although he's physically now 13, he's probably about 3 or 4 mentally. So we did a lot of floor activities like getting the trains out, getting the cars. I always took my leg off. It was just easier. I had more freedom without it. So Charlie's favourite game was to pick up my leg and run off with it. And he's like, "Mom, you can't get me." I was like, "Yeah, you're right, I can't." So I kind of like hop a couple of steps to try and chase him, and obviously he'd run the other way. And he thought that was an hilarious game, and it was up until a point where I was like, "Right, Charlie, I really need my leg back so I can, start making dinner or doing this." And he's like, "Come and get me." So once I gave the mum look, I was like, "Right, we've stopped now." He's like, "Okay, mum," and he give it back to me. So that was his favourite game.
Charlie was bullied at school. How did you deal with that?
When I first became an amputee, I was always anxious about people looking at me, and I had to deal with that myself. So being a mum and trying to find ways of connecting to kids, the little cloth badges that you can get to sew on your clothes. I bought a bucket load of them, and there were cartoon characters and superhero logos, and there were Mickey Mouse, the TARDIS, all that kind of stuff. And I put them on my socket, gave my socket to the prosthetics, and they laminated it on. So I had all these different sockets with these badges. And when I wasn't at Headley Court and I was able to do a school run, I'd drop Charlie off at the school gate. The children, not so much the parents, but the kids would look at me, point and stare. And the parents would be like, "Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't look, don't stare." Which for me gave a negative impact to the child. So if I saw a parent and a child do that, I'd go up to them and say, "No, this is okay." And I'd take off my leg, and it was a conversation starter. And I was like, "That one's my favourite badge. That one's Supergirl." I said, "That's me." I said, I've also got like Mickey Mouse. Which one's your favourite?" And then they'd point and we'd start a conversation. So that's how I kind of started to get over my anxiety about being out in public. And it also got me interacting with the kids. So I'd rather that happen than a parent just shush their child, because knowledge is everything, and it's teaching the children and teaching other individuals that being different is not a bad negative thing. So because going back to the school run, I used to do Charlie's school run, pick up and drop off. A lot of his school friends noticed that I was different, and obviously kids are nasty when that age. He started to get picked on and was like, "Oh, you've got disabled mum, your mum can't do anything, your mum's a cripple." And that really upset him, which upset me. And I was like, because of what's happening to me, this is affecting now my children. So I went to the school and I explained what had happened, who I was. And I said, "If you want, I can come to school and give a talk and let the kids know everything about it. So one, child is stop getting bullied, and two, again, knowledge is power." So they invited me in for a chat, and I had about 3 legs. I took all my legs in, and I had a wheelchair and stick and crutches, and I gave them a little friendly Death by PowerPoint presentation about what I did as a job, how I got injured, what happened to a poorly leg, why it had to be chopped off, all kid friendly. And I took out some pictures that might have scared them. And they were hanging on to my every word. And the teachers were like, oh my God, look at them. They'd never seen a class so still and so focused and engaged on a guest speaker. So at the end of that, little session, we played a couple of games. Like, I asked them if they could balance, and they said, yeah, we can balance. I was like, right, stand on one leg and balance. They could do that. I was like, now stand on one leg and balance, but close your eyes. And then kids were falling over everywhere because, if you're in the shower and you're washing your hair and you close your eyes, you lose your balance, stuff like that. So after that little talk, which I did 3 times to the school, whenever they saw me on a school run, the children would be like, "Hi, Charlie's mum. Hi, Charlie's mum. Hi, Charlie's mum." And there'd be this one little kid. I didn't know his name, but he had a sibling, and looked for me in the playground, and he's like, "Can I hold your leg?" So every time I saw this particular child, I'd take my leg off, give it to him, and he'd hold it, and he'd be like, "Wow!" And that was my day. And then after that, Charlie never once got bullied.
That takes some guts, didn't it?
It did take guts. It was something I'd never actually thought about doing and was talking about. I didn't think there was a story at all. But to explain to somebody why you're different, but you can still do stuff, but you do it your own way, you adapt to it. Yeah, it's quite empowering, because I've said no to a lot of things that I thought I wouldn't be able to do. Like, no, I can't do that. And I thought to myself, have I tried that as an amputee? And I'd be like, well, actually, I could probably give that a go. I'll give you an example. We went rock climbing. We did a Butlins or a Pontins or something like that. And Charlie's like, come do it with me, Mum. I'm like, I can't do it. And he's like, Mum, you could do anything. So I had to think, and I thought, do you know what? I will. So I put my leg on slightly different, because the way my socket is, I can wear it any way I want. So I took it to the side, and I used that leg to just stand on something, and then my actual real leg to move up. So it took a bit of time, but I was a spider monkey, and I did climb all the way up. So just to prove the point.
Ain't No Mountain High Enough, sung by Dion Bromfield and Zaylon Thompson.
How's your dancing?
Oh, I'm awesome at dancing. Not the one-legged hop. I am awesome at. So if there's a good tune on and I'm out having a bit of a boogie, the leg comes off and it does go in the air, and I do wave it around. And if someone's on stage or we're seeing a band, I will happily give my leg to them, and they'll be like, okay, and dance with it. So the leg does actually come out. It's quite a conversation starter.
What's the favourite one we dance to?
Oh, there's so many. I'm still standing. Anything like relatable lyrics to a Missing a Limb.
You can never know what it's like. Your blood like winter freezes just like ice. And there's a cold and lonely light that shines from you. You wind up like the wreck you hide behind that mask you use. And did you think this fool could never win? Well, look at me, I'm coming back again. I got a taste of love in a simple way. And if you need to know while I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did? Looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. And
I'm Still Standing, lyrics by Elton John and Bernie Taupin, performed by Elton John.
Now, Mother's Day is coming up. How are the Johnson family going to be celebrating Mother's Day and their superhero mum?
I've never been one for getting up early. So even now, when I have to get up early, it's like, ugh. So first of all is definitely a lie-in. And then if they don't argue that day, that would be me well sorted, because they're boys. They like to have a bit of rough and tumble. They like a bit of winding each other up. If they don't wind each other up, I'll be well happy. Because to be fair, they do treat me like the queen that I am, except for when, got homework to do or there's a job that needs doing. They are, pardon me, I think we brought them up really well. And I think that what I've gone through for this amputation, it's made them more kinder, more considerate, and shows more empathy. So if they see me in a wheelchair, if I'm having to have a chair day, then they're extra nice and they're extra well behaved. Doesn't always work, but no, I think Mother's Day would be having a lay-in, spending time with the boys. We'll put a film on. We might go out for lunch. I don't care, as long as they're well behaved and they just love me. Give me a hug and I'll be happy.
You do great things for Blessma. what inspired you to get on board and do the great works you do for Blesma as a trustee and all the great things you do in terms of the extracurricular activities and so on?
So before I became an amputee, I had the BSO come round and say, look, we're Blesma, this is what we do. We're an organisation that does this. And I thought, yeah, just another organisation. I'm not holding my breath. However, how wrong was I? It's a completely different organisation that I've ever known. I mean, they actually look after your members. They engage with you members. They put on local outreach events. So we might have a coffee morning one time. We might go bowling another. Might have a pub lunch. So that's really nice, meeting other members in my local area. So that was always good. And I think through that and the local activities, that I was like, oh my God, this is really incredible. This is actually really good. I'm meeting like-minded people who are going through the same stuff, and you can have a good old chinwag with. And the first few months of my amputation, I found that to be a bit of a lifeline, because I had questions that I couldn't ask my family that they didn't know the answer to. It was only fellow amputees. And it was through Blesma as well that I found my first female amputees, because Blesma's predominantly all male. So I couldn't have a chat with somebody about getting a lip stuck in the socket, or when a sanitary towel sticks to the socket. It's just women-y stuff like that. I'm a bit of an oversharer. Whereas a bloke can talk to another bloke about a bollock getting caught in his socket. I couldn't talk about that sort of stuff because I'm female. So that really, really helped. So when the opportunity for a trustee place to open up, I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I've gained so much from Blesma. I want to give back. So by becoming a trustee, this is me of helping Blesma out and giving back to the members, because if we can help a member who felt like I felt when I needed it, then that's a job done. That's a win. That's a massive win.
Lisa Johnson, thank you for being human, not heroic, but utterly remarkable. Have a great, great Mother's Day.
Thank you very much.
Not very often make me cry.
Oh.
And my thanks to Lisa Johnson for being such a wonderful guest on the programme. To Adam, Charlie and Ethan, be sure to give your mum an extra big hug on Sunday. And to all our mums, wherever you are, whether it be on operations, at duty or at home, have a great day. We salute you, we celebrate you, and give thanks for all you do. To learn more about the vital work Blesma undertakes supporting our limbless and sight-affected veterans, or to make a donation, please visit blesma.org. Do join us for the next episode when Human Not Heroic takes the high seas as we travel to the Isle of Wight to meet with Paul Curtis, who lost an eye during the Troubles nearly 50 years ago. Until then, from me, Harry Buck, thank you for listening and farewell. Wonder Woman, composed by Charlie Fox, lyrics by Norman Gimbel, was sung by John Baylor. For His Romance, Son-Parole No. 3, Opera 17, was played by the late Hiroshi Munakawa, available at piano1001.com, a classicals.de recording. We Are Family, written by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, was performed by the Military Wives Choir. With studio editing by Michael Siliano, this has been a Gamekeeper production for Blesma, the limbless veterans.
We should go out on the piss together, because fun fact, I can get 3 pints in my leg. It's a conversation starter. And because I'm a girl, I've blinged it up. It's got pink sparkles on it, diamantes, because of 3 boys and a husband, I need some pink and sparkle in my life.
Tony Bloomfield, this is all your fault.
Yeah.
All right, Ro. Take care. God bless. Take care.
Fabulous.